Have you ever found yourself in a situation where life's path leads you to a dilemma between what is right and what is desired? Where promises of success, riches, and recognition are before you, but something greater warns you not to continue? This is the story of Balaam, a foreign prophet who faced one of the greatest challenges of faith, resisting the temptation of riches and honors from a powerful king, or obeying a divine voice that told him to remain faithful. In this story, we will see how God intervenes to show Balaam, and all of us, that there is a greater purpose, a destiny that cannot be bought or changed by selfish interests. On his journey, Balaam will learn that following God's will is the only safe path, and that, in the end, riches and fleeting promises can never replace the value of truth. Follow this profound story and prepare yourself for a journey that will reveal choices, consequences, and the power of a promise that not everyone can see. Before we begin this incredible journey, I want to invite you to do something. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, take the opportunity to subscribe now and activate the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any transformative stories like this one, which can change your outlook on life and faith. Now, if you've already subscribed, get ready, because what you're going to hear today will touch your heart in a unique way. Let's discover together what Balaam has to teach us about choices, faith, and obedience. Balaam's story begins in a land far from Israel. He was a man known and feared as a powerful prophet, capable of blessing or cursing, influencing the destiny of whoever he came to. But Balaam was not a prophet of Israel, but rather a foreigner who knew the God of Israel from afar, although he maintained his own practices, independent of God's people. His name was famous in many regions. People came from far and wide to consult him, believing that he could determine victory or defeat in battle, prosperity, or disaster. This powerful reputation made kings and leaders consider his services valuable, and Balaam had already accumulated wealth and respect through his ability to influence the future. Balaam's fame soon caught the attention of the king of Moab, Balak, who saw him as his last hope. For him, Balaam was more than just a prophet, he was a strategic weapon. From that point on, Balaam would find himself involved in a mission of enormous responsibility, where his fame and power would be put to the test. He knew he was dealing with the true God, but he was about to learn just how far the Lord would allow him to go. The arrival of the Israelites on the plains of Moab left King Balak in great despair. He had heard stories about this mysterious people who wandered the desert and about the powerful God who guided them. The Israelites had passed through Egypt, defeated their enemies along the way, and were now camped dangerously close to their lands. Balak, observing the immense encampment of the people of Israel, felt a deep and uncontrollable fear. He knew that Moab was a minor kingdom, and that his army, no matter how trained, would not be able to face this multitude that marched with the protection of a feared God. And worse, Balak knew that this God was not like the gods of Moab, because all the reports indicated that he was unique and powerful, capable of performing extraordinary feats. So the king began to look for a desperate solution. Moab was already terrified, the strength of Israel seemed unstoppable. Each report that reached his ears only increased his despair. They said that Israel was no ordinary people, it was a blessed people, guided directly by God himself. Faced with this desperate scenario, Balak realized that his weapons and soldiers might not be enough to stop Israel. So he decided to look for a different way out, a spiritual means, something that could weaken the Israelites before the battle even began. And it was then that he remembered Balaam, the foreign prophet, the one whose word was feared and respected. If anyone could curse Israel, it was Balaam. Determined, Balak formulated his plan. He would send messengers to Balaam with an irresistible proposal. He would give the prophet riches and honors so that he would place a curse on Israel and thus prevent the people from taking their land. After Balak's messengers arrived, Balaam was curious and thoughtful. They had brought gifts and promises of immense wealth if he would accept the king's request, to curse the people of Israel, who were approaching Moab. The proposal was tempting. The promise of wealth and honor, coupled with the request for a king, was something Balaam could not simply ignore. However, he knew that dealing with this request would not be so simple. These were a different people, a blessed people. So Balaam decided to do what he usually does in challenging situations. He sought God in prayer that night, longing to hear his answer. When he finally retreated to a place of silence, Balaam closed his eyes and sought a sincere connection with the true God. He knew that although he was not of Israel, this God was greater and more powerful than any other. Balaam waited, and then the Lord spoke directly to him, bringing a clear and unequivocal message. God asked Balaam, "Who are these men with you?" And Balaam explained Balak's request, detailing that the king of Moab wanted him to curse Israel, fearing that the people would take his land. God's answer came with force and authority: "Do not go with them. You must not curse these people, for they are blessed." What Balaam heard was much more than a simple answer. it was a statement that made God's position regarding the people of Israel clear. They were blessed, chosen, and protected. No curse or word could change God's plan for those people. With that, Balaam understood that the power of his prophecy was no match for the power and will of the Lord. The next morning, Balaam got up and went straight to the messengers. He gave them the answer clearly and directly: "Go back to your land, for the Lord has forbidden me to go with you." He knew that he could not act against what God had said, and now, a doubt haunted his mind. Was he ready to give up so much wealth? Now, I want to hear from you. What would you do in Balaam's place? Would you also resist the temptation of riches and honor, or would you give in to the desire to please the king and get everything he was offering? Leave your comment below and share your thoughts. Let's talk about how faith and the choices we make can change the course of our lives. I look forward to hearing what you think about this story. When the messengers returned to Moab and told Balak that Balaam had refused to go, the king was furious and determined to try again. He was not about to take no for an answer, especially when the survival of his people was at stake. Determined to redouble his efforts, Balak formulated a more aggressive plan. This time, he would send the prophet an even more important group of men of high rank, princes of his kingdom, and make an offer he could not refuse. The new messengers, dressed in luxurious clothes and carrying valuable gifts, came to Balaam. As soon as they arrived, they bowed down before the prophet and firmly declared, "This is what Balak son of Zippor says: Do not let anything stop you from coming to me, Balaam. I will reward you with great honor and will do whatever you say. Please come and curse these people." Balaam was overwhelmed by the escalation of promises. He could see that Balak was willing to offer him anything he asked, if only he would agree to curse Israel. More wealth, more honor, possibly more influence than he had ever imagined. It was all within his reach. Any other foreign prophet would have accepted in a heartbeat. But Balaam, tempted as he was, knew that he had already heard God's answer. Still, he felt that he could consult God one more time. So he responded to Balak's emissaries with a certain caution: "Even if Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could do nothing, great or small, against the command of the Lord my God." But he did not stop there. Still reluctant to miss this opportunity for reward, Balaam asked the messengers to spend the night there. He would explain his decision the next morning, after consulting the Lord again. The promise of wealth and power echoed in his mind and seemed irresistible. So once again, Balaam sought a divine answer, knowing that the riches of an entire kingdom were waiting for him if God changed his mind. That night, God spoke to Balaam again, but this time with a different condition. God said, "If these men come to call you, go with them. But do only what I tell you." So Balaam was given permission to go, but with a clear warning: he was to speak only what the Lord commanded him. If you are enjoying this story so far and if it is touching your heart, don't forget to leave a like. This will greatly help bring this content to more people who, like you, can be inspired and learn from the lessons of this journey. Click the like button now and continue following this incredible story. The next morning, Balaam prepared for the long journey to Moab. He mounted his donkey and set out, accompanied by the noble messengers that King Balak had sent. However, something unexpected was about to happen, something that would change the course of their journey. As they made their way, Balaam's heart was torn between obedience to God and desire for the promised riches. But God knew what was deep in Balaam's heart and decided to give the prophet a powerful warning. It was then that the angel of the Lord appeared, invisible to Balaam, but blocking the path ahead. Balaam's donkey, however, could see the angel standing there, holding a sharp sword, as if ready to attack. Frightened, she swerved off the road, trying to avoid the angel. Balaam, not understanding what was happening, was furious at the animal's unexpected behavior. He got off and began to beat the donkey, trying to get her back on the road. They continued on a little further, but soon the angel of the Lord appeared again, at another point along the way, still blocking the way. This time, the donkey pressed itself against a stone wall at the side of the road, hurting Balaam's foot. Enraged, the prophet struck the donkey a second time, without having the slightest idea that there was an angel there. They went a little further, until the angel appeared a third time, blocking the way in a narrow place where the donkey had nowhere to turn. With no way out and completely frightened, the donkey lay down on the ground, refusing to take even one more step. By this time, Balaam was already beside himself with rage. He began to hit the animal with all his strength, trying to force it to get up. Then something incredible happened. God opened the donkey's mouth, and it spoke to Balaam. The donkey asked, "What have I done to make you strike me these 3 times?" Surprised and unaware of the miracle that was happening before him, Balaam replied, "You have made me look like a fool. If I had a sword, I would kill you right now." The donkey then reminded him of all the faithfulness and obedience she had always shown. "Am I not your donkey, who has always served you faithfully? Have I done this before?" Balaam, still stunned, replied, No, at that moment, God opened Balaam's eyes, and he finally saw the angel of the Lord with his sword drawn, blocking his path. Immediately, Balaam fell face down to the ground, repentant and afraid. The angel spoke to him, rebuking him for his impulsive behavior and warning him that the donkey had saved his life by turning aside 3 times, because he would have been killed if he had continued. In a stern voice, the angel gave him a clear warning: Balaam could continue on his way, but he should only say what God commanded him. Frightened and aware of the gravity of the situation, Balaam continued his journey to Moab, with a much more cautious and fearful heart, knowing that he could not act against God's will, not even for all the riches in the world. When Balaam finally arrived in Moab, King Balak was eager and hopeful. He greeted him with great enthusiasm, and immediately began to show him what he expected Balaam to do. Balak wasted no time. He wanted the prophet to curse Israel as soon as possible. After all, the people of Israel were camped right there on the nearby plains, and the king's fear only increased when they saw them so close to his land. Balak led Balaam to a high point, a place from which they could see part of the Israelite camp. The sight was impressive. The tents of the people of Israel stretched out vastly, covering the plain like a silent tide. To Balak, this was a sign of imminent threat. But Balaam, cautious, reminded the king that he could only speak the words that God put in his mouth. He explained that, as much as the king wanted a curse, what he would say would depend entirely on God. Balak, nervous but determined, did not give up hope. He suggested that Balaam prepare 7 altars and offer animal sacrifices, believing that this ritual would please the gods and strengthen Balaam's willingness to curse the people. After the offerings, Balaam went to a solitary place where he would consult God. And there, God gave him a clear message. When Balaam returned, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. But instead of a curse, what came out of his mouth was a blessing. Balaam proclaimed that Israel was a people blessed by God, whom no one could curse or weaken. "How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I condemn whom the Lord has not condemned?" he said. Balak, upon hearing these words, was furious. He had brought Balaam all this way with promises of riches, and all he heard was a blessing. Still, Balak did not give up. He thought that perhaps the problem was their location. Then he took Balaam to another hill, from where they could see another part of the camp of Israel, hoping that from there Balaam could pronounce the desired curse. Again altars were erected, sacrifices were offered, and Balaam went away to consult God. But when he returned, the result was the same. Instead of a curse, Balaam pronounced another blessing, declaring that God was the defender of Israel, and that the people had divine protection, unshakable by any human power. God does not lie or change his mind. He has blessed, and I cannot reverse it, he said, leaving Balak even more frustrated. In desperation, Balak tried a 3rd time, taking Balaam to another place. More altars, more sacrifices, and more consultation with God. And once again, the Lord gave Balaam words of blessing for Israel. Balak was furious, his patience exhausted. He looked at Balaam and demanded, "If you cannot curse them, at least keep silent." But Balaam had already understood the power of God's purpose for Israel. So, under divine inspiration, he spoke once more, declaring that Israel would be victorious and that no one, not even the most powerful kings, could stop the people the Lord had chosen to bless. Balak, then, realizing that his efforts were in vain, released Balaam to return home, furious and disappointed. The message was clear: nothing could change Israel's blessed destiny, because God had determined protection and prosperity for his people. And so, Balaam left, carrying with him a powerful lesson about the power of the Lord and the strength of the divine word, which no one, not even a foreign prophet, could contradict. So, what did you think of Balaam's story? What lessons did you learn from this profound story? Did he make the right choice in following God's direction, even with all the promises of riches and power? Leave your comment below, share your ideas and feelings about this journey. Let's exchange thoughts on how this story can impact our lives today. And so we come to the end of Balaam's incredible story. Throughout this journey, we have seen how he faced the temptation of great riches and promises, but in the end, he discovered something much more important: God's will. Balaam learned that no matter how much is offered to us or how difficult the decision may be, following the right path and obeying God is always the best choice. His story teaches us that temptations can often seem irresistible, but what God has for us is always far more valuable. When we trust in His words, He guides us in ways that no human wealth or glory can offer us. And if you are facing a dilemma in your life, something that makes you choose between what is easy and what is right, remember Balaam. The decision may not be easy, but when we follow God's direction, we know that He always has the best plan for us. So don't be fooled by fleeting promises, always choose the path of faith and trust. Because in the end, it is He who truly blesses. If you like this story and want to continue following more inspiring stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing and activating the bell, you will stay up to date with all the updates and not miss any message that can transform your life. Be part of this journey with us.